a curious person. If I see or hear something odd, I'll probably want to investigate. I think this personality trait helped me with my career in broadcasting. I know it helped me with my camera work getting the best shots, and it certainly helped me record great interview commentary. Curiosity also made me a better writer. You know, if I hear a lawnmower running in my neighborhood, I have to go to the window to see who's cutting their lawn. Maybe that's not curiosity. Maybe that's just a dad thing. Something that's always interested me was scientific research, like the studies going on at Penn State. So I went to the website studyfinder.psu.edu and took a look at the various studies going on at the university and which of them were looking for volunteers to take part in the research. There are loads of them going on right now, like sleep management, pain management, addiction, skin conditions, and men's and women's health. I clicked on a number of them and found one in neurology for brain injuries, a study that might help people, including service members that have been injured in combat. I applied to that one and got accepted. I found that the studies I looked at gave various levels of compensation to participants. The graduate student I worked with was polite, respectful, and very bright. Kristine Dell is a fifth-year graduate student working on her PhD. She has a BA in Cognitive Science from Virginia, worked at Walter Reed Military Medical Center, and got her master's studying neurotrauma, and is soon off to San Diego for a year to finish her work towards a PhD. She put me through a series of tests that took most of the day. It was an interesting experience, one that I'll probably try again. Kristine and I found a place outside of Chandlee Lab to talk about her work. Okay, Kristine, tell me, what happens in Chandlee Lab?
So the Chandlee Lab houses a variety of research opportunities here at Penn State, notably our MRI scanning capability on campus. It's a research scanner that's entirely dedicated for research scans that services an array of researchers across the university. So we're very fortunate that we don't have to compete with clinical scans or clinical scanning time that you often encounter in medical centers or hospitals.
Well, what do you need with an MRI machine?
MRIs help us take more refined pictures of brains to help us understand aging, the impact of disease events or injury events such as traumatic brain injury or head injury, so that we can see how brain structure and function might be changing across the lifespan in children as well as adults, as well as the impact of disease or illness or other injury events on the brain as well.
What got you into brains? Are you a brainiac? Why are you so into brains?
I think it's a combination of personal and professional interest. I think the biggest contributor to my current interest in brains started when I was working at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. I took on a position there in the Traumatic Brain Injury Service clinic that is there in Bethesda, Maryland. Got a chance to interact with neurologists, clinical psychologists, clinical neuropsychologists, and psychiatrists.
A lot of colleges.
Yes, definitely. And I was working with service members who had encountered traumatic brain injuries as a result of their active service, and so wanted to continue that work and really felt a calling and a passion to be able to serve that community as well.
Well, that's a good reason, I think. All right, so I'm part of a scientific experiment, right? You're gathering data. Explain what I'm going to go through today.
Sure. So we have a study design or a study visit day that is designed to try and acquire as much information about structure and function of the brain, which is why we would ask you to participate in the MRI scan portion. We also have a non-scanning portion where we want to get a sense for cognitive functioning or thinking tasks while you're outside of the scanner, as well as health history, a little bit about your personal background, and then things that we might lump into a category of what we would call psychological or social variables. So different surveys that are going to ask how you feel you're functioning in your everyday life and your mood and things like that.
So you're trying to find out what makes me tick.
Exactly.
Now, if I'd have got on that MRI machine and you would have found nothing in my head, I guess we wouldn't have been doing this study any longer, would we? All right, so what do you expect to accomplish from what the data you're gathering from all the volunteers that have come through here, what do you expect to accomplish by that? What's your goal? What's the end?
So our goal is twofold. Our research study is definitely aimed with a specific focus of understanding the impact, longer term impact specifically following moderate to severe traumatic brain injury events. But there's also this piece as well that's important to disentangle is these natural changes that evolve out of aging, even healthy aging, or for individuals who do not have this same injury history. And so we're kind of trying to tackle simultaneously this opportunity to understand structure and function changes within the brain, both in individuals who don't have that injury history, as well as those who do have that injury history.
All right, so in the real world, once you and your team compile all this data, sift through it, and come to conclusions, how is this going to help the everyday guy, man or woman out there on the street?
A couple different ways. I think in one way, regardless of your medical or injury history, we're hoping to shed some light and offer recommendations for healthy lifestyles that are going to promote overall health and specifically brain health. We're also seeking to advance our understanding of changes in the brain after an injury, so we might better be able to infer or suggest certain recommendations for rehabilitation.
Especially for veterans and
Absolutely.
And guys from,
Yeah. And the second piece of that as well for civilian context is what can we do on a daily basis, whether it's short-term or long-term care, to assist these individuals to recover function as best they can, or for caregivers and other friends or family members who are part of that network that are supporting somebody who's struggling with challenges following a brain injury of this severity.
But to be clear, you don't work with athletes that had football injuries. You're more of a car accident or bombs or different things, is that correct?
Less so bombs, but many of these moderate severe injuries are going to be falls from greater heights or greater impacts, motor vehicle crashes, things like that. The sports-related work tends to err on the more mild side of the head injury spectrum, so that's actually handled by one of our colleagues, Dr. Peter Arnett's sports neuropsychology lab. So we are less involved with them just by virtue of the fact that because we rely on imaging, brain scans, mild injuries typically don't demonstrate any recognizable findings or bleeding on the brain or anything like that when we put somebody with a mild injury in the scanner. You might see other things, but with respect to bleeding on the brain, penetrating injury, or observable damage to structure, you're less likely to see that in a mild injury than you are in moderate and severe TBI.
Gotcha. Well, here you are sitting outside of the lab, and you can't go on Penn State campus in the summertime without construction and cars backing up and everything else, but I think we'll get through this. All right, so at any one time, there are probably dozens of studies going on at Penn State University with the different sciences. Why is it important for people to log on to Penn State website and find out what studies are going on and volunteer? How critical is it for you to get people like me to come in and be analyzed?
It's a really good question. I think it's something that is really critical so that we can ensure that the studies that we're conducting, the findings that we are aggregating from our data, and the recommendations that we're making as a result of those projects are applicable to as many people as possible. And so the more individuals that we can get to sign up for an array of studies, asking a multitude of different questions and using different methods in order to try and examine those questions, it increases our confidence that we can say for a large, diverse array group of people, we have a lot of confidence in our data that it's widely generalizable or applicable to most of the individuals that we're seeking to serve. It's not simply a set of findings that are very specific to a very small group of individuals that happen to repeatedly participate in our studies and things like that. So it really, I think, widens the opportunity for us to feel confident in our findings and that they're generalizable to the wider public.
Well, I was comfortable during our little study in there. All the tests you put me through made me feel like a dumbass half the time, but you told me that's normal. But there are good things about this, obviously the data that you get, but also people are compensated, aren't they?
They are. So anytime that we're conducting a research study, we will provide some form of compensation, and that type of reimbursement will vary from project to project.
My part in this study took about 6 hours, and I had to bring my own lunch. Some research requires more time, much more, and the amount of compensation varies depending on the study. Okay, so you're a fifth-year doctoral student.
Yes.
So you've seen a lot of studies come and go.
Yes.
What is the most unique study you think you can remember that happens at Penn State?
I think the one that kind of makes me smile every time I think about it is some of the studies that are out of diet and nutrition science laboratories that are recruiting individuals to eat certain foods so they can study the impact of that on diet and nutrition. And we've had the experience of when we were recruiting for our own studies, and we asked, have you participated in Penn State research before? We had quite a number of individuals who had participated in either an avocado study or a prune study. And so
Either or.
Yes, and so that always made us smile because we were always curious about the specific details of what that might entail.
Well, interesting. I know avocado tastes great. I love avocados. Yes. And I think we all know what happens if we eat too many prunes. Well, are there any alcohol studies where people would drink a lot of wine?
I haven't heard about one yet, but if we did hear one, I might sign up myself.
Oh,
so.
There you go. Penn State student.
Yeah.
Well, what is your favorite part of what you're doing here? You work with me all day long, which was a trial on your end of things. But think about it. Why do you do what you do? Why is it important to you to find some answers about brain injuries?
I think the biggest thing is I very much enjoy the face-to-face opportunity to get a chance to hear each individual's story, regardless of the group that they're participating in, whether they have the history of moderate severe TBI or whether or not they don't, because we're all coming from various corners and health histories and different experiences, and all of that is going to help us generate a more comprehensive picture of aging, and for some individuals aging with a history of TBI. And so the opportunity to work firsthand with these individuals who may be struggling or at a minimum are learning to live with a serious injury event in their past is really a great privilege, and to be able to make a difference hopefully with the work that we're doing that could have a real impact on an individual's daily life is really rewarding.
Wonderful. Well, I'll tell you that one thing that impressed me after working with you all day is the complexity of the brain.
Yes.
And how it allows certain elements into it, and how it expels some, and how complex it is, and it just seems like it's a puzzle.
It is. It's very much a puzzle, and I think as a field, regardless of the specific avenue that you're researching the brain from, we're learning as much as we are learning more information and increasing our knowledge and understanding of the brain. We're also increasing our knowledge of what we realize we don't know.
Gotcha.
And new questions to ask with each question or project that we're working on.
Okay, so tell me how long this study has been going on, because you're a fifth year PhD candidate student.
Yes.
So tell me how long this has been going on, and what's going to happen before it gets finished.
Sure.
What are the results? What's going to happen?
So the study has been going on now for its 5th year, might be actually entering its 6th year.
6 years?
Yes, and so it's a longer term study because we were interested in longer term effects of aging with a traumatic brain injury. I have suspicions that this specific study protocol, so the study activities you were asked to do today, might start to wrap up over the next year or so, but not quite certain, as we sit here today. What I do think will continue is the opportunity to participate in scanning, not just within our lab. We would probably just reintroduce another another study set of activities, as well as other opportunities to both participate in scanning and non-scanning studies from the Department of Psychology, and that will always continue.
So then what's next for Kristine Dell? What happens now? Where are you going now?
I am preparing to start what's called my pre-doctoral internship at the VA San Diego healthcare system in San Diego, California, and that'll start this summer, and that's a 1-year clinical internship, so a really nice opportunity for me to round out the last piece of my clinical training in a hospital-based setting in San Diego.
That sounds like a lot of fun, a lot of sun.
Yes, definitely. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I wish you the best of luck, and thank you so much for being on Cans, Copy, and Mike.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Okay. It's important for researchers to get participants for their research. It's impossible to get critical data without test subjects. The studies going on at Penn State are numerous, and they're interesting. Participants won't get bored, and odds are they'll be compensated. I was paid $150 for my time, in cash. Took my wife on a date. I encourage people that have the time to apply for a research study and help these gifted researchers and their graduate students solve problems that will benefit others. Not only will it stimulate your curiosity, participation may fatten your wallet. I encourage you to send me comments about my podcast on the website at michael@canscopymike.com. Let me know if you have a suggestion for a guest I can interview for my show. Remember, I want interesting people that do interesting things. You may know some. Talk to you next time on Cans, Copy, and Mike.